Have you ever stopped to think about why someone lingers in your mind so strongly, even without any communication? It's not just a coincidence. When someone occupies your thoughts consistently, it's a sign of the emotional imprint they've left behind. Every interaction, every shared moment leaves a trace in our minds. It's like a footprint in the sand, a memory that stays even when the tide of time tries to wash it away. This isn't just about attraction, it's about something deeper, an unspoken energy exchange between you and that person. You see, our minds are like sponges absorbing emotions, words, and even silences. Sometimes it's not what was said, but the energy of the interaction that leaves the strongest mark. Maybe it was the way they looked at you, a fleeting smile, or the way they made you feel seen, even for a moment. Those small, seemingly insignificant gestures can create a lasting impact because they resonate with something within us. And when communication stops, that imprint doesn't just disappear. Instead, it grows stronger, feeding on the silence and amplifying the connection in your mind. It's also worth noting that when someone is always on your mind, it might not be about them at all. It could be about you. Yes, you. It might be highlighting something within you, your own emotional needs, your own longings. Sometimes we project our desires onto others without even realizing it. The reason he's on your mind could be because he represents something you feel you're missing, a sense of belonging, validation, or even just the thrill of being wanted. It's not necessarily about who he is, but what he symbolizes in your life. Now, let's talk about why this is so powerful. The fact that someone can hold space in your thoughts without even trying is proof of the profound influence human connections have on us. It's a reminder of how deeply we're wired to seek connection, to hold on to the fragments of relationships that made us feel alive, even if only for a moment. But it's also a reminder of the power we give to others in our lives. When someone dominates your thoughts, it means they've captured a part of your energy. And here's the real question: are they deserving of that space? Take a moment to reflect on why he occupies your mind so much. Is it because of the way he made you feel? Is it because of the memories you created together? Or is it because of the things you never got to say? The closure you never had? Whatever it is, understanding the emotional imprint he's left is the first step toward taking control of your own thoughts. It's about recognizing that while those memories are real, they don't have to define your present or your future. Ultimately, when someone stays in your mind without communication, it's a call to look inward, to understand not just the connection, but what it's teaching you about yourself. And when you begin to see it for what it is, a powerful emotional imprint, you can decide how much of your energy you're willing to let it hold. Because your thoughts, your energy, and your emotions are yours to reclaim. When someone occupies your mind without any communication, it's easy to assume that this constant thought is purely about them. But often it's much deeper than that. What's really happening is a reflection of your own emotional landscape. Our minds don't just dwell on people or situations randomly. There's always a reason, even if it's hidden beneath the surface. Sometimes the persistent presence of someone in your thoughts is less about them and more about what they represent in your life. Consider this when you think of him. Is it the person himself you're drawn to, or is it the feelings he ignites in you? Maybe it's the sense of security, the validation, or even the spark of excitement that his presence once brought. Humans are emotional beings, and our thoughts often cling to people who evoke strong emotions in us. But here's the twist: it's not just the positive feelings. Sometimes unresolved hurt, confusion, or longing can be equally powerful in keeping someone on your mind. This is why self-awareness is so critical. You have to ask yourself what need or desire is being triggered by his presence in your thoughts. Is it a longing for closure, a need for connection, or is it the comfort of familiarity, even if it's tied to something that no longer serves you? When we reflect on these questions, we begin to see that our thoughts aren't just reactions, they're clues. They point to areas in our lives where we might feel unfulfilled, unsettled, or uncertain. Let's also acknowledge the role of silence in all of this. When there's no communication, our minds have a habit of filling in the gaps. We imagine scenarios, replay old memories, and even create narratives that may not be true. This isn't because we're weak or overly emotional. It's because our brains crave resolution. We want to make sense of why someone who seemed to matter so much is now absent. And in that search for answers, we give them even more space in our minds. But here's the empowering part. Once you recognize that this is happening, you can take steps to reclaim your mental and emotional energy. It's not about suppressing your thoughts or forcing yourself to forget. Instead, it's about understanding that these persistent thoughts are a signal or call to address something within yourself. Maybe it's time to focus on what you truly want in your relationships or to heal wounds you've been avoiding. The key is to shift the focus from them back to you. When you start seeing these thoughts as opportunities for growth rather than burdens, you take back control. You realize that their constant presence in your mind doesn't mean you're powerless. It means you're human navigating the complex web of emotions and experiences that make us who we are. And in that process, you have the chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more in tune with what truly matters. When someone remains in your thoughts without any communication, it often stems from the emotional connection or significance you've attached to them. Think about it. When you feel deeply for someone, it's not just about their physical presence. It's about how they made you feel, the role they played in your life, and the memories you shared. Emotions leave imprints, and those imprints have a way of resurfacing, especially when there's silence. The lack of communication can amplify this effect as it leaves room for your mind to wonder, to replay, and to analyze what might have been left unsaid. This phenomenon is tied to how our minds seek resolution. Silence creates a gap, and we instinctively try to fill that gap with meaning. Your brain might focus on trying to decipher why they're not reaching out or what their absence means. It's a natural process, but it can also trap you in a cycle of overthinking. You find yourself revisiting moments, dissecting their words and actions, and questioning your own. It's as if your mind is searching for closure in a space where no answers are being provided. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Sometimes it's not even about the other person at all. It's about you. Their presence in your thoughts might be a reflection of something deeper within you. It could be a longing for connection, a desire for validation, or even an unmet need for emotional intimacy. When someone occupies your mind, they often act as a mirror, showing you parts of yourself that you might not have been paying attention to. This is why it's so important to shift the focus inward. Instead of fixating on why they're not communicating or what their silence might mean, take a moment to ask yourself, why do they hold so much space in my mind? What emotions are they triggering? What unmet needs or unresolved feelings are being brought to the surface? By exploring these questions, you can start to untangle the hold they have over your thoughts. Another aspect to consider is the role of your expectations. Sometimes we create scenarios in our minds about how people should act or respond. When reality doesn't align with those expectations, it leaves us feeling unsettled. This discrepancy can cause someone to linger in your thoughts because your mind is trying to reconcile what you hope for with what is actually happening. Recognizing this pattern can be a powerful step toward letting go of the mental hold they have over you. Remember, your thoughts are a valuable resource. When someone occupies so much of your mental space, it's worth asking if they truly deserve it. Are they adding value to your life, even in their absence? Or are they simply a placeholder for emotions and needs that you should be addressing within yourself? These are difficult questions, but they're necessary if you want to regain control over your emotional and mental well-being. Taking back your thoughts doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means honoring them, understanding them, and using them as a guide to grow. When you shift the focus from the other person to yourself, you not only free your mind, but also create space for new possibilities that align with who you are and what you truly deserve. When someone is always on your mind, despite no communication, it often signals the power of emotional ties and the expectations you've built around them. The truth is, we often project onto others the qualities or potential we wish to see in them. In your mind, you may have created an image of who they are or perhaps who you want them to be, and this idealized version takes root in your thoughts. This projection can grow stronger in the absence of communication because silence allows room for imagination to fill in the gaps. Think about it. When there's no contact, you might find yourself replaying old conversations, interpreting their words and actions, or even imagining scenarios where they say what you've always wanted to hear. This mental loop isn't just about them, it's about your own hopes, dreams, and perhaps even fears. The emotional energy you've invested in this connection creates a cycle that can be hard to break because it feels like a puzzle you're compelled to solve. But here's the challenge: what you're holding on to might not be entirely real. It's not necessarily the person themselves who has a grip on your thoughts. It's the version of them you've constructed in your mind. This version may include their potential, your shared history, or even the future you envision together. In this way, their presence in your mind becomes less about who they truly are and more about who you wanted them to be for you. This is why it's crucial to ground yourself in reality. Ask yourself, are you thinking about the person they actually are or the version you wish they were? Are you replaying moments where they genuinely added value to your life, or are you clinging to the promise of what could have been? These questions might be difficult to confront, but they can help you separate the truth from the stories your mind has created. Recognizing this dynamic is an empowering step because it shifts the focus back to you. Instead of waiting for them to reach out or validate your feelings, you can take control by addressing your own needs and emotions. What is it that you're truly seeking? Is it closure, reassurance, or a sense of belonging? Whatever it is, understand that these things don't have to come from another person. They can come from within you. This shift is about reclaiming your emotional independence. It's about realizing that while someone might occupy your thoughts, you have the power to decide how much influence they hold over your life. You can honor the connection without letting it define you. You can acknowledge the impact they've had while still moving forward with clarity and purpose. The key is to focus on what's real and to let go of what's imagined. By doing so, you free yourself from the weight of unfulfilled expectations and open the door to genuine growth. This process may not be easy, but it's necessary if you want to break free from the cycle of longing and step into a space of emotional freedom and self-discovery. When someone is always in your thoughts despite no communication, it often reflects a deep longing for connection, one that stems not just from the person themselves, but from something within you that feels incomplete or unfulfilled. This constant mental presence can be a mirror, showing you areas in your life where you crave reassurance, closure, or validation. Often it's not just about missing the person, but about the emotional gaps you believe they might fill. Consider how emotions work. They don't operate in isolation. If someone occupies your mind, it's likely tied to significant memories, experiences, or even unresolved questions about the relationship. The absence of communication creates an emotional vacuum, a silence that your mind instinctively tries to fill. You replay moments, analyze their actions, and try to derive meaning from the spaces between words. But what this often leads to is a cycle of overthinking that keeps you tethered to something that may no longer exist in the same form. In these situations, it's essential to ask yourself, what are you truly holding on to? Is it the person as they are? Or is it the comfort, excitement, or sense of belonging they once represented in your life? Sometimes what we cling to is the idea of who they were during a specific time when they made us feel seen or valued. That memory can become so powerful that it feels almost tangible, overshadowing the reality that people change, circumstances evolve, and sometimes the version of them in your mind no longer aligns with the person they are today. This isn't about dismissing your feelings or minimizing the importance of the connection you had. On the contrary, it's about honoring those feelings while understanding that your constant thoughts may be more about what you need for yourself than about the other person. What is it that you're seeking? Comfort, closure, the hope of rekindling what was lost. By identifying the root of these emotions, you can start to find ways to address them that don't rely on someone else's actions or presence. It's also worth noting that people leave impressions on us for a reason. If someone occupies your thoughts, it might also mean they played a pivotal role in your journey, teaching you something valuable about yourself, even if their role in your life wasn't meant to be permanent. Instead of focusing on what's missing, reflect on what you've gained lessons about love, resilience, or even your own boundaries. Redirecting your thoughts isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending the connection didn't matter. It's about channeling that energy into something productive, something that builds you up rather than keeps you stuck. Focus on your growth, your passions, and the relationships in your life that are reciprocal and nurturing. When you do this, you'll notice that the grip of these lingering thoughts begins to loosen. Remember, the thoughts you have about someone reflect the value you place on the connection, but they shouldn't overshadow your value as an individual. You have the power to take charge of your narrative, shifting from a place of longing to a place of empowerment. In doing so, you reclaim your mental and emotional space, creating room for new possibilities to flourish. When someone is persistently on your mind without any communication, it can signify a deeper connection beyond what meets the eye. At times, this mental presence isn't just about nostalgia or resolved emotions, it's a signal from your intuition. The human mind is powerful, but the heart and soul are equally compelling forces, often guiding us in ways that logic cannot fully explain. Sometimes this repeated mental image is less about the person and more about a message or realization your inner self wants you to uncover. Think about how energy works between people. Even when communication ceases, the emotional and spiritual bonds don't instantly vanish. These connections linger, not because they're meant to haunt us, but because they serve as reminders of something significant, perhaps a lesson, a truth, or even an opportunity for growth. The person occupying your thoughts could represent unresolved feelings or a reflection of something you desire, fear, or working through. In some cases, this mental fixation can feel like a tug on your emotional, spiritual awareness, prompting you to take action or reflect deeply. Maybe it's about reaching out for clarity or realizing the importance of letting go. On the other hand, it could be a reminder to prioritize your well-being, to consider whether your thoughts are aligned with your current reality or if they're tied to an idealized version of the past. What's important is to pause and ask yourself what emotions come up when this person enters your mind. Are they positive, hopeful, or filled with love? Or do they carry weight, regret, or longing? These emotions are signposts guiding you toward what your heart might need. It's not about clinging to the person, but understanding what their presence in your mind signifies about your journey. Sometimes the constant thought of someone is a call to examine your patterns. Have you been overly dependent on external validation or connection? Are you projecting qualities onto them that you wish you had within yourself? These moments of introspection are gifts, offering clarity about who you are and what you truly need. Moreover, consider that being on someone's mind works both ways. Just as you think of them, there's a chance they think of you too. Human connections often work in mysterious ways where unspoken feelings and energy create a bridge, even in silence. But here's the catch: you can't control how others feel or respond. What you can control is how you choose to engage with these thoughts. Are they empowering you, or are they keeping you tethered to something you've outgrown? Taking charge of your thoughts means redirecting that energy inward. Use the presence of these emotions as a catalyst to focus on your growth, to cultivate the qualities you admire in a person or connection. Turn this mental space into fertile ground for self-discovery and transformation. Because at the end of the day, the most meaningful connections aren't about constant contact, they're about the impact they leave behind and how they shape the person you become. Let your mind be a space of clarity, not confusion, of empowerment, not entanglement. By doing so, you create room for new possibilities, for healthier connections, and for the peace that comes with truly understanding yourself. When someone occupies your thoughts without any direct communication, it's easy to let those thoughts spiral, creating scenarios and meanings that may not reflect reality. This mental focus can often stem from unspoken questions or unresolved emotions, leaving you in a state of uncertainty. But here's the truth: clarity comes not from imagining their intentions, but from understanding your own. Think about this. Why do we allow someone's lack of communication to hold such power over our minds? Often it's because we are searching for validation, closure, or a sense of connection that we think they can provide. But the reality is, when someone does not reach out, it's their choice, their decision. It has less to do with your worth and everything to do with where they are emotionally or mentally. Recognizing this is the first step toward reclaiming your emotional freedom. Your thoughts about them might come from a place of longing or unresolved hope, but it's crucial to assess whether these feelings are helping or hindering you. Are they driving you to better understand yourself? Or are they keeping you stuck, waiting for something outside your control? This reflection is not about suppressing your emotions, but about channeling them constructively. What happens when we shift the focus from them to ourselves? When instead of asking, why aren't they communicating with me, we ask, what do I need to feel whole? Regardless of their actions, this is where true empowerment begins. You begin to see that their silence isn't a reflection of your value, but a chance for you to listen to your inner voice. If they are always on your mind, it might be an opportunity to explore your boundaries and emotional independence. Are you giving away too much mental space to someone who isn't reciprocating that energy? If so, it's time to set limits, not just for them, but for yourself. Learn to redirect your focus onto the things that nurture your growth and bring you peace. At the same time, it's worth considering that not all connections are meant to be permanent or even mutual. Sometimes their role in your life was to teach you a lesson or to guide you towards self-awareness. By holding on to what they represented rather than who they are, you can extract the value of the experience without remaining tied to the expectation of their communication. This process requires strength, but it's also deeply rewarding. It allows you to reclaim the energy you spent on unanswered questions and use it to build a life where your happiness isn't contingent on someone else's actions. Let their absence remind you of your capacity to be complete on your own. Endings often bring beginnings. This is a moment to rise above, to let your thoughts about them transform into insights about yourself. When you do this, you'll find not just clarity, but freedom, a freedom that comes from knowing you are enough, no matter who chooses to stay or who chooses to leave. When someone occupies your mind without communication, it can feel like you're trapped in a cycle of unanswered questions and unspoken emotions. The uncertainty can be unsettling, leaving you wondering what this silence means and why their presence in your thoughts feels so persistent. But have you ever paused to consider that this mental and emotional energy might be less about them and more about you? Sometimes the silence acts as a mirror, reflecting your own insecurities or unfulfilled needs. The emotions stirred by their lack of communication may point to something deeper, perhaps a longing for validation, connection, or understanding. But here's the truth: their absence doesn't diminish your worth. It's not a measure of how lovable or valuable you are. It simply speaks to where they are in their journey. And that's something you cannot control. Now let's explore what you can control. When you find yourself fixated on someone who isn't reaching out, it's a powerful reminder to redirect that focus inward. Ask yourself, why am I holding on so tightly to someone who isn't showing the same effort? What is it about their silence that keeps me so engaged? The answers to these questions can be transformative. They guide you to recognize that the control you seek over their actions should instead be directed toward your own emotional responses. Imagine if you took the energy spent overanalyzing their silence and invested it into your own growth. Picture channeling that mental space into something that uplifts you, whether it's a passion project, self-care routine, or simply reconnecting with friends who genuinely value your presence. By shifting your focus, you reclaim your power. Their lack of communication no longer feels like rejection. Instead, it becomes an opportunity for you to build a life so fulfilling that their presence or absence doesn't define your happiness. This is not about ignoring your feelings or pretending they don't exist. It's about giving those feelings a purpose beyond the confines of unanswered messages or distant actions. Acknowledge the emotions, but let them fuel your growth, not your fixation. Their silence might teach you resilience, patience, or the importance of prioritizing those who reciprocate your energy. Here's something profound to consider sometimes. The person who lingers in your mind is not the one you need, but the one you thought you needed to feel complete. When you realize that you already have everything within you to create joy, fulfillment, and peace, their absence stops being a burden and becomes a gift of clarity. Ultimately, this process is about letting go not necessarily of the person, but of the hold their actions or inactions have on your emotions. You deserve to feel free, empowered, and focused on what truly matters, your growth and well-being. When you shift your energy away from their silence and toward your progress, you'll discover a sense of liberation that transforms how you see yourself in your relationships. And let their silence be a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. because the most important communication you'll ever have is the one you maintain with yourself. When someone is always on your mind, despite the lack of communication, it can feel like you're trapped in a constant loop of wondering and waiting. Why do they occupy such a significant part of your thoughts? What does it mean? But instead of focusing solely on the absence, this is an opportunity to delve into the deeper meaning behind your emotions and actions. Often, when we hold someone in our thoughts, it's not just about them, it's about us. It reflects our desire for connection, our need to feel seen, valued, or understood. It's easy to romanticize their presence in our minds, building stories around their silence. But here's the thing, the more energy you give to someone who isn't communicating with you, the more you surrender your own power. It's as though you're handing over control of your emotional state to someone who isn't even aware of it, or worse, doesn't care enough to engage. So what do you do in this situation? First, take a step back and recognize the imbalance. Their silence doesn't deserve the weight you're giving it in your mind. Instead of focusing on what they're not saying, ask yourself, what is their silence teaching me? It might be teaching you patience, resilience, or even how to prioritize your own needs over someone else's absence. The truth is, when someone isn't reaching out, it doesn't always mean they don't care, but it does mean they're not making an effort. An effort is a key indicator of where someone stands in your life. If they're not taking the time to communicate, then it's time for you to evaluate whether they deserve the space they're taking up in your thoughts. Remember, you're not obligated to carry the emotional weight for someone who isn't meeting you halfway. One powerful shift you can make is to redirect your energy towards self-reflection. Why do you feel so connected to someone who isn't reciprocating that energy? Sometimes we idealize people in their absence, attributing qualities or intentions to them that may not even be true. By grounding yourself in reality, you free yourself from the illusion, start focusing on what's real, your growth, your happiness, and the relationships that truly enrich your life. Imagine the freedom of letting go. Picture yourself waking up and realizing their absence no longer stings. It's just a fact, not a defining feature of your day. This doesn't mean you stop caring about them, but it does mean you stop letting their lack of communication control your emotions. It's about reclaiming your mental and emotional space for things that uplift and inspire you. Your time and energy are precious. When you spend them on someone who isn't reciprocating, you're robbing yourself of opportunities to nurture connections and experiences that truly matter. Shift the focus from their silence to your strength. Because in the end, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Prioritize that, and everything else will fall into place. When someone occupies your thoughts constantly without any form of communication, it becomes essential to ask yourself why this person has such a hold on your mind. It's easy to get lost in the notion that their absence is somehow a reflection of your worth or that something is wrong, but the truth is much deeper. The truth is that their absence isn't a reflection of your value. It's a sign that something needs to shift in how you manage your own energy, thoughts, and emotions. Consider this: when we give too much attention to someone who isn't actively engaged in our lives, we are allowing them to control our emotional state. We're handing over our inner peace, our joy, our focus to a person who may not even realize the impact they are having on us. This is an important realization because it signals to us that we have lost touch with ourselves. In moments like this, it's crucial to take a step back and reflect on what it really means to have someone so present in your mind despite their silence. It may seem hard at first, but the absence of communication from this person is an opportunity for you to evaluate your emotional investment. Are you giving away too much of your heart, your time, your energy to someone who isn't reciprocating? The simple truth is that your emotional well-being should never be dependent on someone else's actions or inactions. When you let your thoughts be consumed by someone who isn't showing up, you allow them to take up space in your mind that could be better used for your growth, healing, and joy. So what do you do when this person is constantly on your mind? You regain control. You stop letting their silence dictate how you feel. It's time to shift your focus from the absence to your own presence in your life. You have the power to decide where your energy flows. You have the ability to create space for yourself, for your goals, for your dreams, and for people who truly enrich your life. Remember, the absence may feel like a void, But that void is simply an invitation for you to fill it with something more meaningful. This is where the real power lies, not in waiting for someone to show up, but in choosing to show up for yourself. When you stop waiting for their communication, you stop giving them control over your emotions, and you begin to rediscover your sense of self. Ask yourself, why should your peace depend on someone who isn't even actively engaging with you? Their silence should not be your source of emotional confusion. Instead, let it be the trigger that sparks your own healing journey. Instead of thinking about what they're not doing, think about what you can do for yourself. Start putting your energy into activities, relationships, and goals that bring you fulfillment, rather than dwelling on someone else's lack of effort. In the end, you realize that your peace, your joy, and your life are not dependent on anyone's communication or actions. They are solely in your hands. It's time to take back that power, let go of the emotional weight, and redirect your energy into the things that truly matter. By doing so, you free yourself to live fully in the present, no longer held hostage by someone else's silence.